Advocacy workshop, shaping policy to embed climate education in higher education. What are we going to be talking about today is the following. We'll hear from 6 speakers from 5 different organizations on how they successfully managed to shape policymakers at a national level for various purposes, but we're specifically interested in how to shape the curriculum to embed climate education in higher education curriculum. While the speakers will be sharing their stories, you're also invited to enter your questions via the Slido tool. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. So please don't use the chat for answering your questions, but use the Slido. There we can then also upvote your questions and address the ones that are most, carry most resonance for everybody. So after hearing the stories, we'll have 8 minutes from each speaker. We'll address the questions that you've raised, and then also collect some of the challenges that you might be facing in working with policymakers in your country, and then offer the opportunity to speakers or other participants to respond to the challenges that you raise. And finally, we'll take some time to really harvest and collect the main lessons, the key takeaways from the session today. Just to give you a bit of background, this project is part of the Youth in Education project that SOS International is working on together with UNESCO and UNEP. And the aim of this project is to convene students to work together with policymakers to make climate education part of the formal curriculum in higher education institutions. UNESCO and UNEP are also working on other levels of education, but we as SOS are specifically focusing on higher ed. And for this webinar, we're also collaborating with the US Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development and UNESCO specifically on the World Higher Ed Forum. We'll hear a little bit more from Josephine about that in a second. A bit more background about the Youth in Education project. So what we're doing today is mostly part of point 4 here, enabling collaboration. So this is really about learning how students can actually collaborate with policymakers. But we've already done some work in terms of bringing different partners together to really share their experience and invite more people into this project. And we've already consolidated some of the asks or demands of students and insights that have already been done in terms of surveys on student opinions. And we also created a video highlighting the youth voices on what they actually want to see in the curriculum in terms of climate education and the asks they have towards policymakers. So you'll see that coming in the chat, and we'll share more about that in the follow-up email as well. So we'll have 6 speakers. Oh, sorry, didn't get a photo yet from Amber here, so I have Emma double. Yeah, so we have 3 speakers from the US. That's Emma, Amber, and Evie, or Evangeline, and Kelo from Nigeria, Emilia from Poland, and a second Emma, Bergeling from Sweden. Yes, so I'll stop sharing my screen and invite Josephine to say a little bit about the World Higher Education Conference that UNESCO is organizing.
Hello, thank you, Tim. Just a few words to everybody here. So as you know, this webinar is organized also in the context of the WEC, so the World Higher Education Conference, which is a decade event organized every 10 years to rethink higher education. And the next event is going to be in Barcelona, in Spain, the next 18 to 20 of May, with this goal of bringing to the table artists, entrepreneurs, NGOs, ministers, to really think differently about how to reframe higher education. And especially, we're inviting youth to participate to this brainstorming. And especially there's one initiative we recently launched, which is a consultation in different thematics related to higher education, such as governance, migration, the crisis of the COVID-19. And we would love all of you to participate to this consultation to give us your point of view and your ideas. So I will share the link in the chat, and at some point you can, after the webinar, you can go see what's happening there. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Thanks so much for joining us and for creating this youth strategy as part of the UNESCO's efforts. Yeah, so I think we're good to go to hear a little bit more from you as participants. So please click on the link that was shared, the Slido link, and or you can also scan it with your phone. So I'm just gonna share my slide here. So we just want to hear a little bit about what is your level of experience with advocacy at a national level.
And I see that people want. And the application or the platform that you have already available online, is it like a portal where someone could access this data and see it, or?
All right, so it seems like I've got a fair mix of experience, but most people, or have so far, don't have much experience yet. So we'd also like to know a little bit about in which country you live, just to get a sense of the spread, the distribution of US participants in different places around the world. And just enter the name of the country. Right, seems like we got quite a US focused crowd today. But nice to see people from different parts as well. Like in the sign up, there was already people from all around the world. So I hope that we can have a similar representation of people who signed up in the actual call. Yes. So yeah, I would just move on then to hearing the stories of the participants. And I would like to give the word first to Emma and Amber from Arizona State University, and part of Change the Chamber Lobby for Climate campaign, focusing on, so Amber is focusing on as part of the team since last August, and focusing on the congressional and corporate outreach, social media, and special interest projects. And I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see that. Right, no, you have it. Great.
Thank you. We're very thrilled to be here today and be a part of this conversation. And we're just here to tell you more about our efforts with trade associations and climate. So a trade association is an association of many businesses. And we found out that they have a lot of power and influence legislation. And they do this by lobbying with the country's policymakers, and they influence the bills that get passed. So we specifically targeted the US Chamber of Commerce because they are the largest and richest trade association we have in this country. And they have this really long history of climate disinformation and obstruction. So with good climate action, this really helps students learn how to hold companies and these trade associations accountable for the impact that they have on climate. So with this next slide, what is our process and how we collaborate with policymakers? We like to send out letters. So we send out letters demanding them to take action on climate, either change the chamber or leave it. We try to do this every few months. We sort of update them on information that we're doing, what other corporations are doing, or what the chamber is doing and stances on climate right now. And we sort of restate our demands. We also like to set up meetings with these corporations. This is my favorite part, we like to discuss the hypocritical actions that they may have, what they are and aren't doing for climate, ways in which we can help aid them. We kind of play good cop, bad cop. We always want to help. And again, kind of just discussing our demands. So if we go to the next slide, these are current demands right now. We also do weekly social media storms on top of regular posting schedules. So we like to appeal factually and emotionally here at Change the Chamber. Storytelling is a very big deal and stories matter. And we also praise and target companies here. So we either call them out for what they're not doing. And again, that good cop, bad cop kind of situation. We also like to praise and show our support in what they are doing. And we target individuals, representatives, and corporations. We also meet with congressional staffers. We have a very big congressional outreach team here. This is one of our largest teams. And we always get together and have specific questions for policymakers. And when we do get together, we do the research, kind of figure out the right questions to ask in preparation for these meetings. And the students pick what questions they want to ask through the duration of this. We also do follow-up meetings and emails with these staffers. If we go to the next slide here, some of our accomplishments have been contributing to the Chamber's shift in supporting a market-based price on carbon emissions, plus supporting the United States rejoining of the Paris Agreement in NDC. We've also reached 110 million feeds across social media and have targeted 500 executives and corporations. We've also rejuvenated the Chamber's corporate members and pushed them to either change the Chamber or support climate solutions, and have been a part of multiple media hits. So we've been in news organizations like Yahoo News and USA Today, and been a part of the national and international job initiatives. Some challenges that we have had is sort of that community engagement. We think this is really crucial for building strong support in growing communities. And we're starting to overcome this with social media events coming these next upcoming months. And some of the most important lessons learned is sort of how to build up that youth power and be heard. We really monitor and fact check anything that's happening in regards to climate and push for those climate conversations with the climate crisis. We also try to remember that this is a fun experience. So although we are having those very serious conversations with the representative staffers or corporations, that we can make an impact, and these conversations do lead to change. And we meet with each other all the time. We have 2 core team meetings and separate individual meetings with the team. So we really like spending time with each other and kind of celebrating our successes. So from the empowerment that we felt here and everything we've done at Change the Chamber, one of our core team members, Emma, came up with this project for a toolkit. So I'm going to pass it on to her.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having us. My name is Emma Vagelos, and I'm a fellow here at Change the Chamber and a student of environmental analysis at Washington University in St. Louis. Another huge aspect of our campaign is reaching out to other youth globally. We recognize a hole in climate education, where we spend a lot of time on the science and doom of gloom of climate change, but spend little time on solutions beyond broader terms like adaptation and mitigation. This project started as a brainstorming session on how to support our coalition members and bring them deeper into the fold of facing our climate realities by creating real solutions. In our research, we found that many toolkits on change making or activism out there would use vague terminology, such as just be a good listener, without ever saying how or what that means to others. We were trying to explicitly guide readers through skills that would make a change in their lives and their environment. This toolkit then became a way for us to provide them with those resources. We then took to our own organization and networks to collect learning tips from students, educators, and longtime activists, asking them to share what has been useful to them in their change-making journey. This all culminated in the How to Be an Environmental Changemaker toolkit. This toolkit is to empower you to be who you want to be in the world, to help you become more effective at making the world a better place and reduce your worries about climate change by helping with the solutions. This toolkit is taking education and showing how it can be applied into climate action. Next slide. So we would then love to walk you through this document and explain its key sections and the help it can bring to individuals. Our first big section is a self-help resource titled Self-Care and Resilience, as we believe an essential first step to change making is the betterment and understanding of oneself. In taking care of ourselves, we can put our best efforts into changing the world around us. This includes sections like how to avoid climate doom, learning to set healthy boundaries, and bringing love and positivity into your life. After learning to work well with others, we want to guide readers through working. After learning to work better with ourselves, we want to guide readers through working with others. The essence of change making is making a difference in people. Change making also isn't an act done individually, and we need to work with others to create this lasting change. This is learning about that good listening we mentioned earlier, how to create a narrative, and finding common ground with people across the political spectrum. We need coalitions of people, like those of you on the call today, to make change, and we are trying to instruct our readers on how to form them. Another huge part of this section is communicating information effectively. This includes three major aspects: public speaking, writing, and social media. Communicating information and emotion is essential to change making, as you need others to understand you and join you in your efforts. After learning to work with yourself and others, we need to have action to cement these items and bring them to a broader audience. This means understanding systems change and learning how to work within the system or against it to reach that goal. While many universities have stepped up their sustainability departments and degrees, there's been little help for the youth entering the workforce, trying to find environmental careers. People are getting disheartened not only by the lack of jobs, but by the lack of advice and general support. In this section, we provide succinct job tips. And finally, the last section reaches out specifically to students and how to be an active member of a learning community. We are preparing them to work for the work and the tough conversations of the classroom. Next slide, please. This document is full of links and resources to other work from professionals on the topic. We know that while we are an expert in our own references and life story, there are others who know these topics more, specifically on topics such as allyship to marginalized communities. One of the major aspects is that this is a living document, meaning that we are looking for more tips to add and asking readers to comment on what we could write to help. We are also currently working on connecting these youth, specifically recent graduates, on an online forum so that they can not only get easy access to the resources we provide, such as speaker series or job opportunities, but a connection to others. We are looking for an improvement in education and the resources it provides. We need to speak on how to build the green economy, how to change the energy market, and other specific things like that. This toolkit can be a resource for climate education on the importance of action and the step from the classroom and learning to actual change. The QR code on the screen is a link to our website where you can access this document. The link I will also put in the chat in a second. And yeah, while you're on our website, check out our other work, our weekly newsletter. And that's all. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. That's really valuable. And I'm just gonna move it right to our next speaker, who is Kelo Uchendu, a Nigerian youth advocate for sustainable development and the founder of Gray2Green Movement. So great to have you, Kelo. Please unmute yourself, and looking forward to your story.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. Let me try and share my screen.
State of art, yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelo, and I'm joining the call from Nigeria. So I want to quickly go over some of the works we've done in trying to influence policymaking or trying to work with policymaking from the Nigerian context. To start with, we've done work around two key areas. The first is working with the minister and the Federal Executive Council, and the second is working with the policymakers, that's the members of the legislature. I don't know if you can see my screen. So with the first one, I want to start with the work we do with the minister. So earlier last year, we started trying to work with the ministry to see how we can shape the state of climate education in Nigeria, but especially how inclusively how the ministry can work with young people and also engage this collaboration with the other ministry to try to improve the state of climate education in the state, in the curriculum. So we had very close dialogue and working relationship with the Nigerian Ministry of Environment. I think this is a picture with us with the Minister of State for Environment, Honorable Sharon Ikazo. And what we did basically was try to present our policy demand, which is as an outcome of our the mock-up 26 conference, where we have 18 policy demands, and then we did a brainstorming to come up with 6 realistic policy acts that is most suitable for the Nigerian context, and then lobby for this treaty to be implemented in the Nigerian context. And we also did a lot of work with trying to work with the Nigerian Parliament to try to shape the Nigerian climate change bill. The Nigerian climate change bill is a bill to mainstream the actions, to mainstream Nigeria, to provide a legal framework that will mainstream Nigeria climate change ambition. So we worked with the members of the Parliament to try to develop develop and revise this bill, which was passed by the Nigerian Parliament and then signed by the Nigerian President Muhammad Buhari into law. So we have very steps of which we used to work this. And the first one was trying to secure a meeting with the policymakers, trying to secure a meeting with the trying to secure an audience with the minister or with the members of parliament that we're looking to work with. And that is also one of the most challenging parts. And the second one was coming up with a drafting a clear and concise agenda item, which is very helpful in trying to narrowing down the actions or the acts that we have. Because most of this meeting is usually very short, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes more. So you have to keep it concise. You have to be clear as possible. And another thing is doing a research to understand what are the works that are already going on in the ministry and how we can align our acts and demand with what is already going on with the ministry. And then the second is in trying to pitch these ideas to decision makers. So we recorded a huge lot of success. The first was the ministry agreed to look into our policy acts and try to see how this can complement existing efforts. And also the ministry praised to, in the run-up of COP26, praised to shadow 6 young people, 6 Nigerian youths into the Nigerian negotiation team at COP26, and then also commit to having regular consultations with young people. And this is also ongoing. When the Nigerian NDCs was drafted, there was a series of consultation with young people. And also this year, as they are launching their work plan ahead of the year, there are also consultations with young people. I think one of the major success is that we've created a channel where the ministry feel very confident to reach out to young people to obtain feedback and stop within the work that they've been doing. And lastly, the Nigerian climate change bill, which is one of the work we put a whole lot of time into trying to shape this bill and campaigning for this bill to be passed, was signed into law in November last year by the Nigerian president, Muhammad Buhari. The Nigerian climate change bill aims to highlight, provide a legal framework for the Nigerian Climate Actions Initiative. And some of the key acts around that was establishing a council, a climate change council, which is headed by the president, but have representatives from the different groups, both the youth groups and the marginalized or underrepresented groups sit in the council to try to debate and come up with possible solutions that would mainstream the Nigerian climate change ambitions. And yeah, some of the challenges we had, I don't know what's wrong with my slide. One of the challenges we had in trying to do this was the first one was trying to get in contact, because when trying to reach out, we sent a lot of contact and a lot of emails, a lot of contacts to try to get in touch. But most of these emails is being ignored. So I think one of the best practices and how we overcome that was having someone who has a very close relationship with the ministry make an initial introduction, and from there we are able to pick it up. Another major challenge was lack of capacity, because most of the it gets to a point at the time of shaping the climate change bill, most of the people on the team and from my team have very little of the not experience actually drafting actual registrative documents. So it means that I'll have very limited capacity to actually produce, and we'll have to go through an entire learning curve trying to come up with something that is decisive and something that is actually actionable. Another thing is this was happening at the time, and we have members from the team in different parts of the country, and we try to do collaborate from the different areas. And when we have to travel down to the state capital to have our actual meeting, and we have a whole lot of challenges trying to coordinate across different times. And then also the question of funding, because most of traveling and trying to accommodation some of these activities were capital intensive, and we have very limited funding to actually carry out this project. And I think the key lessons actually is in trying to do this. I think in trying to make to lobby decision makers to come up with. I think the one very important thing is to see how you can align your acts with the current efforts or commitments being carried out by the ministry. In case of climate education, I think one good example is looking at the S-Work program. I think we have about 193 countries who are signed to that bill, and seeing how you can make an argument from okay, my country is a signatory to the S-Work program, and this work is looking to complement the work, the commitment you've already made in the S-Work program, and trying to drive this agenda forward. So it's also very important that in trying to shape your act, to look very deeply to understand what are the current efforts being done in the ministry, what are the decision makers, what are the current efforts or pledges they've made. It could be pledges they've made in the NDCs or pledges they've made in COP26 or multilateral decision-making processes like COP, to find a way to try to align this to the act. Another key lesson was that these are very decision makers, these are very high-level people, and they have very little time to actually go back and forth with you. So you have to be very comfortable working with their aides or assistants. You might have 10 meetings with the aides and just 1 or 2 meetings with the actual minister. So you have to be very comfortable working with the aides or assistants, and also be very open and willing to have holistic conversations and dialogue around your key acts, and also looking at to understand what are the situations, what are the current limitations that the ministry have. It can be in terms of finance. From the Nigerian perspective, where every year there is a budget being assigned for the ministry, and the budget is being drafted using a particular framework. So it's also very important that you understand what are the limitations that the ministry have and how you can try to work around those limitations. And also after that, try to maintain close relationships and contact with the team, so that you can always have a feedback process where you can always go back to them or check what are the activities that they are doing. And so it's also very important that you do these few things. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Kelo, for your valuable success stories, and really awesome what you were able to achieve there in Nigeria. And we did have a lot of people who are signing up from Nigeria, so I really hope that they will also take inspiration from your lessons. Really celebrate your work and wish you all the best for your continued efforts. I just wanted to give everyone a moment to just take a breath. We heard like 2 very rich stories. So maybe just take a moment and let that sink in. And if you notice any questions arising for you, then I just want to remind you to place those in this Slido, and you can also react to the questions you have of others. And we'll come back to the questions after we hear from the other speakers. All right, so let's move on to the 3rd speaker. So we have Emilia from the Fridays for Future Climate Education team. So really looking forward to hear from you as well.
Yeah,
Welcome,
hello.
Emilia.
I hope you can see my screen. I'm just going to present it.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. So hi, I'm Emilia, and I'm from Fridays for Future Climate Education. It is an international project that we started last year with some of my friends from Poland, and we have so far gathered a lot of people from all different countries, especially in Europe. Unfortunately, we are still kind of centered in Europe due to the time differences, but there are still some people from other countries as well. I put some of my social media handles if anyone wants to reach out or ask any more questions further after the workshop, but obviously we'll come back to it later. Okay, so I don't know. Oh, okay. First of all, who are we? I already kind of said a little bit about it. So we are an international team, and we are working to implement intersectional climate education at all levels of schooling that is going to be available for every single child. And we even went to COP with our demands. We had a few members going there, and they hosted some conferences. They spoke to a lot of politicians as well. They made a lot of connections. And they have presented a declaration for policymakers to sign. I know a few really influential politicians signed this document and kind of like declared that they're going to be working on making climate education a reality. And we have also been focusing on various online and offline campaigns. We did like a video about why we need climate education. We are constantly trying to collaborate with other organizations as well. And we are doing like social media storms and different things like that. Our main action was last year when we kind of started off our collaboration with the ministries by sending them letters. So how do we collaborate with policymakers? So last year we have sent them letters, and not gonna lie, we did not get the best response because ministers just don't want to work with children, apparently. So they told us straight away that we do have climate education and that they're not gonna make any more efforts. So we had to find a different approach. I think just one country, Finland, managed to meet their ministers by just sending them letters. All of the other ones had to kind of find ways around it. So we focused on finding supporters, such as other organizations or really influential people that would support our demands. And then we met with local politicians. So we kind of researched who has connections with whom. And that's kind of how we arranged those meetings. So we were kind of starting from below, and we were trying to reach as many people, as many politicians as we could. And eventually we did find connections to ministers. And here in Poland, we have already met with the Minister of Climate and the Minister of Education quite a few times. So you can see here is a picture from one of the meetings with the Minister of Education. We also met the Deputy Prime Minister as well. So yeah, we kind of had to go around this thing with meeting them because they were just not willing to at first. But in some of the countries, there are still problems with trying to arrange those meetings. In Lithuania, for example, they had a few meetings with their ministers, and then the ministry cut contact completely. So what they're doing instead is they are focusing on students' unions and teachers' unions to implement climate education from within the system and not kind of from above. So let's talk about our successes. So we went to COP26, as I said, and we presented our declaration for climate education there. And we had quite a bit of success. At COP26, we also hosted a conference for climate education. And there was quite a bit of media there. And yeah, just in general, people heard about us and a lot of politicians. And what is also worth noting is that we are a group of literally 17 or 16-year-olds mostly, which is absolutely crazy that we managed to do all of that. Here in Poland, we are like our group, along with some other groups of youth, are making lesson plans and creating a change in the curriculum working within the Ministry of Education. So we are creating lesson plans as of right now that are going to be compulsory for every teacher to teach since September this year, which is absolutely crazy. In Israel, for example, they also launched a program to teach teachers how to talk about the climate. That is all under the ministries. And as I said, in Lithuania, they had quite a bit of problems, but they managed to find really good contact with the Minister of Environment. And he wrote multiple recommendations to the government and to other organizations to kind of call them to implement climate education at schools. And now for the challenges. Obviously, we have encountered a lot of them, as I already told you about. So most of them are with just getting in touch with the policymakers. So we had to find other ways around it. As I said, we were kind of trying to reach them from the local politicians and kind of work our way up, but it didn't always work. So there's also always the aspect of working with teachers' unions, student unions, maybe international organizations as well. Also, keeping contact with them is quite difficult. We are trying to always arrange new meetings, always give them new ideas so that they don't cut ties with us completely, because then that would be awful because we wouldn't be able to reach them so easily again. Then also we had to settle for kind of a compromise. Here in Poland, we had a lot of meetings with our ministers and they said, yeah, we are going to implement climate education. And then when it comes to actually implementing it, they said that they're not able to do it as soon as we would like to. So we settled for a compromise. We are creating lesson plans for the curriculum since September. And then next year, we're going to change the curriculum itself. So not just lesson plans, we're going to completely change the system if that all works out. But we kind of had to settle for a compromise that we're not doing it all within 1 or 2 years. It's going to be a much longer time frame, but I'm still hoping that it's going to work out. And the most important thing is that they either don't treat us seriously or expect us to solve all of their problems. So a lot of the times we were just met with the sentence that they're not going to listen to us because we are children. And sometimes they would be surprised that we didn't come to them with a complete legislature process written out for them that they're just going to implement. Which is completely ridiculous if you think about it, to expect something like that out of a group of 17-year-olds. But this is kind of the different ways that they treat us. And I'm pretty sure this is also what all the other people have encountered in their activism as well. And some of the good practices. So first of all, don't let policymakers make you feel like you know nothing, and use your age to your advantage. So if they tell you that you're too young to know something, kind of try to turn it around as we did. We told them, no, we're not too young. You are too old. We are the experts of what we're talking about, because we are talking about our education. We are talking about our future, and we are the experts about it. So kind of try to turn all the negative things that they're saying to you around and try to make them feel like they know nothing about your generation and not that you know nothing about what you're trying to do. Also, I think that's pretty clear that you have to have a solid plan when you're going to meet the politicians. You can't just go in there knowing nothing because they're going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to expect a lot from you. Also try to collaborate with as many organizations and have a really strong network. So whichever problem you may encounter along the way, you will always have a person that you can reach out to that will help you with it. That's also really important. And try to find multiple approaches and see what works best for your situation. Try to find, again, different people to connect with, different ways to reach the ministers and other policymakers. And the most important thing is to not give up, because it takes a lot of time. So yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Emilia. It's super awesome what young people can achieve. And indeed, I think we need to show more that this is where power should lie, ideally. And people currently in power need to listen more to. So thanks so much for showing some pathways of how that voice can be heard as much as it should be. All right. Next up, we have Bergeling from Climate Students Sweden. So she co-founded the Climate Student Sweden initiative in 2018 and has since been involved in building the Climate Students movement and scaling its impact. So Emma, I invite you to come on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, I'll share my screen. All right. Yeah, so I'm Emma Bergeling. I'm the co-founder of Klimatstudenterna, Climate Student Sweden, and I'm really happy to be here. It's been so inspiring to hear similar initiatives going on around the world. Like, we're not alone doing this in Sweden, that it's happening everywhere. So it's amazing to be here. So Climate Students is an organization that is helping the universities reduce their own emissions in line with their own climate science. And I'll just start by sharing a little bit about our story. So we started in 2018, then we were just a handful of students at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in Uppsala in Sweden. And we quickly grew to local groups all over Sweden, mobilizing students who were frustrated about this disconnect between what we were being taught at universities about climate change and the environmental degradation and how urgent it is to act, and the actual action of the universities, because they were not living in line with their own science. So that's the aim of our organization, to help universities reduce their emissions. We also grew to an international movement and have an international branch, the Climate Student Movement. But I'll be focusing on Sweden today and what we did with our advocacy and what we're still doing with our advocacy here. So we started with, so we want to help the universities reduce their emissions and try to identify leverage points. What do we need to focus on to get this done? And when we talked to researchers and environmental managers, something that became clear is that we both needed pressure from students and also from above. So in Sweden, the government gives directives to the universities what their mission is, what they should be doing. And in these missions, there were no writings about sustainability whatsoever. So that was our goal, to change that and to get a writing in these so-called appropriation letters, the missions to the universities, that they should work with sustainability and reduce their own emissions. So here is an image from the advocacy meeting that we have. You see the Minister for Higher Education and Research in red. We invited some co-communicators. Here is the environmental managers, a researcher, and a coworker at the municipality that we talked to beforehand and knew that they kind of agreed with us and would be there to co-communicate our message. And yeah, so we actually succeeded in changing the government directives to the university. So as of 2019, there is a paragraph included about that the universities need to work on their sustainability work, they need to report, they need to have a plan on how they're going to continue working on it. And of course, it was not as sharp as we suggested. We wanted to have the Paris Agreement in there, the 1.5 degree target, but we're still pretty happy. But we're continuing working on making it even sharper. And we didn't do this just in this one meeting. We had several meetings, both with the Minister of Higher Education and Research, also her secretary, which was really who we had to email like 1,000 times, like, hello, remember us, we want to meet again. And like previous speakers have said, like that's a great way to get in contact with the person you want to meet, to get in contact with the people around them. And also really important is that we looked up, okay, so now we've met the minister, and she's gonna put this proposal forth, but who will actually be involved in the decision? Who else do we need to speak to apart from the minister? And then we identified the process in the parliament, that it would go through different parts of the parliament and who are in these different parts, and try to have meetings with them as well and explain, okay, so she's hopefully going to put this initiative forward, and then we would very much like you to vote yes, and try to impact also the people who will be impacting the decision. And here's, we got some national news coverage when this happened. This is from a big national Swedish newspaper about that the government sharpens their demands for universities. And yeah, here's the golden paragraph that we got in there. It's in Swedish and I'm not gonna read it in the interest of time, but there it is. So some challenges, maybe a bit broader when working with students. I mean, we have a limited amount of time where we're doing these voluntary things apart from our studies. So something that we found really interesting and challenging is to have a structure that works for students and that becomes sustainable. So we really spend time on like, okay, how can we have elections maybe twice a year so that people overlap, so that not all involved people just graduate all of a sudden and there is no group left, to get that like long-term sustainability. And I also think that's really important to keep this advocacy going, that it's just like doesn't stop all of a sudden when people graduate, but that it's a continuity in it. And also allow for different engagement levels, that some people might have an hour a week and then, okay, so that's great, let's use that. What do you want to do with that hours? Whereas some other people might be like, okay, I want to do this full time. Also, like I said, we didn't get our full demands forward, but we're happy now with the ones that we did get, and we keep on pushing to get sharper demands. So keep on trying and stay confident that you know what's needed for your future, and keep pushing those demands forward. And also prioritizing in time and energy and focus on the things that actually give a lot of impact. Here's just an image from our conference where we gathered climate students from all over Sweden to get a sense of the movement. So some lessons and tips. What I found really helpful in our advocacy is that we had this really clear idea of what we wanted to achieve and a quite narrow focus, which made it really easy for the minister to understand what we wanted. So I would advise, instead of having many demands, because we want to change a lot of things, right, to focus, okay, this is what this meeting is for, and stick to that. Also, something that I think helped get us this meeting was we had a visionary communication. So even when we were 3 students at SLU, we said we're a growing national movement, which was true, but kind of a vision also that we communicated. And creating a narrative about where we were growing. Also, to take charge in meetings and to set the agenda. You often get a limited amount of time, 30 minutes, an hour, to really come there well prepared and say, okay, this is what we want to talk about. And also have a person that takes time and says, okay, now it's time to move on to the next point. And like, don't be afraid to interrupt them and move the meeting forward, so that you make sure that you get all the points covered that you want out. Also reach out, ask for help. A lot of people are willing to help. That's my experience. If you need a lawyer, ask one, as we did, helped us formulate our demands, a photographer, etc. And also co-communicators. Like we said, like previous speakers have said, that sometimes you might not be listened to, and it was really helpful for us in the meeting with the minister to have the environmental managers there. Because when she was like, no, the universities don't want this, then they were there from the universities and saying, yes, we do. And we got help there. Also do your research, who makes the decisions, what are the most important people to talk to, and spend time and energy there. And also use your power as a student, because Us students are super important for the universities. We're the basis for their whole operation. So you have a lot of power and have fun while you're doing it. Okay, that's it for me. And here are some contact info. I'll put it in the chat as well. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Emma, and delightful to see you again and to hear your story. And yeah, again, I'm just gonna pass it on to the next speaker, the last speaker we have for today. And I see that already a lot of questions have been coming into the Slido, so that's great. Keep them coming, keep upvoting other people's questions. And at the same time, try to keep your attention also on the last speaker. So Evie is a student fellow with the US Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development. And through that is contacting ministers to support improving renewable energy education for climate change mitigation. So Evie, I would like to invite you to come on and share your story.
Thank you, Tim. Excited to be here, and I'll just share my screen now. Okay, so I've been contacting ministers as part of the Green Jobs Initiative. Just let this load up. There we go. So my introduction, I joined the US Partnership, and I'm also a member of Change the Chamber Lobby for Climate. I'm a student fellow in both, and I joined both a year ago. So with Change the Chamber, I do participate in the meetings that we have with corporations and US policymakers, and I do other tasks. And in the US Partnership, I contribute to the clean energy workforce initiatives we have going. So I'll be discussing the international today, and then we also have 2 others on the national and state level. I'm also a current master's student in sustainable management, and I'm working the international initiative. The work I'm doing with the international initiative will feed into my thesis of evaluating the process and creating a document of best practices. We hope that this will be an example for other countries. So this is an example to you that you can make your assignments in school about real world projects. So why are we contacting ministers for the Green Jobs Workforce Initiative? This is an international initiative with UNEP Youth and Education Alliance based off of the global guidance document that we produced. We leveraged the document to create a full initiative. We invited in already credible reviewers, and we used their status to build our own credibility. We're bringing stakeholder groups together to facilitate communication between them and to make the renewable energy sector education and training more effective for youth and employers. So we have had 2 events so far. You can see them below. One's focused on educators and one's focused on employers. These events will lead into a survey and 2 virtual communities. We'll have one that's for ministry staff and one for all other stakeholders. So how did we begin contacting ministers? First, we contacted the African Ministers of Education. We gathered this contact info with help from student fellows Jada Sola and Aluche. They're with the US Partnership also. Then we expanded to other ministers relevant to our initiative, which includes education, but also economic development and planning, finance, employment, etc. Every country will have different but similar ministries, so you can determine what would be most closely related to what you're advocating for. And climate education is relevant to all disciplines since it's such a big issue with so much crossover, so you can have like employment ministers working on education and it's all related to climate education. So we invited ministers to our events. We used a few marketing tactics, and when you're marketing out your own initiative, it's crucial to develop your own or use our examples. So we use magic sentences saying that they have unique and important roles in the clean energy transition. We said that we have timely events with subjects that need further work. So like renewable energy is advancing rapidly and companies are experiencing skill gaps not addressed in education. And we also relied on our organization's credibility that we had built up. So smaller organizations can use other tactics. So like with Change the Chamber, we say that we're students who are forced to live with your decisions. And we're also these policymakers, future workers, and consumers. We're also working with the Clean Energy Ministerial. And this was as a result of our marketing tactic. It's only an example of what you can do in your own work. We had no prior connections with them. We had just sent them an email asking to work with them, saying that we had a lot in common with what we were trying to do. So the Clean Energy Ministerial brings together 28 countries and the European Commission, and their goal is to accelerate the clean energy transition as well. They hold annual meetings with ministers and staff from around the world. And when we emailed them initially, we used the sentence that I mentioned previously, or magic sentence, saying that they have a unique and important role to play in the clean energy transition. And with our meetings with them, we plan to create a virtual community for ministry staff to work together to advance the clean energy transition. So we're focusing on cross-ministerial collaboration to allow participating staff to think outside of their usual box. It's not directly focused on their usual topics. Like I said, employment ministers will be working on education to advance the common goal of the clean energy transition and mitigating climate change. We're also focusing on office staff instead of ministers themselves to avoid political boundaries and to reach staff that might be working on issues for longer than a minister's term. And I just wanted to point out again that our activities on this slide wouldn't have happened without that initial email to them. So this is how you can find contact info for ministries. Every ministry will have a website, and most will have at least basic contact info listed. So you should collect that contact info into a spreadsheet with all of your necessary information. We also used a tool called Rocket Reach, which we together email addresses, so you can put in like a LinkedIn profile or a name. It'll pull up all of the email addresses it thinks are related. Then Gmail has capabilities to create email templates and mail merges, so you should take advantage of this. It'll save you time. You can make one message and send it to all of your contacts. And then can use magic sentences and explain why your cause is important. So you can say, like I have an example here for climate education that you can use. Just saying that it's important and they have a crucial role to play, and it's their responsibility to advance climate education. And I just wanted to thank Shen, Amber, and Kendall, who are all from Change the Chamber, for helping us collect contacts. And then I have some links here. I'll put them in the chat when I'm done. I'll also leave my contact information. But you can reach out to US Partnership for opportunities to become an international climate fellow. And then you can use our credibility for your own climate education initiatives. And I'll leave those links in the chat and pass it back to Tim.
Great, thank you. So last not least, that was the collection of stories. I can get that maybe that's a little bit overwhelming, a lot of stories all at once, but I trust that you will be able to piece out the things that are most interesting to you, or maybe to listen to the recording again. And now we want to shift gears a little bit and hear from you. Also, what questions do you have? What challenges do you face? We initially thought to first focus on the questions that are more about clarifying the stories of the speakers that we already heard, but I saw that the questions that you posed are very much also about challenges, so let's just address those together. So let's have a look at the challenges and questions that were raised on Slido, and feel free to add any additional ones in there. See that there's already quite a few that have been upvoted. Yeah, so Ellie or Evie, do you want to lead us through the questions that have been most upvoted?
Yeah, so it looks like the most upvoted question right now is, how do you ensure the intersectionality of your group's focus and actions when addressing climate change? Examples: disabled people, indigenous people, people of color, etc.
So yeah, any of the speakers or also any of the other participants, feel free to unmute yourself and to start your video if you would like to address this question.
So I can just say a word. We have a whole team where we send out, we look up the different universities, and then we look up their environmental groups, and we look up their different marginalized group that have been organized into student groups, self-organized, and we invite them to join. And we reach out, we make that effort. So that's why we have a coalition of over 100 student groups across the country, but also around the world.
Yeah, I'm another member at Change the Chamber. And like we talked about congressional outreach in this Changemaker document, these are all teams. We have an environmental justice team that works specifically on reaching out to these marginalized communities and supporting their voices. Often we see this tokenship of marginalized voices or sort of speaking for them. So we are trying to not only uplift their voices, but using things like our blogs, our social media to bring them higher. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That was super insightful. And then moving on to the next question, how did you start your organization? How did you find like-minded people, and do you need certifications? So this might be a question that Emma could answer from Sweden.
Yeah, we started it at SLU, like I said, and then we were just like 3 people that were in the same program and kind of knew each other from there. And the way we found people all over Sweden is that we made a Google Docs and said, okay, we want people at these universities. And then we made a list and reached out to all of our friends who were at these different universities and said, hey, do you know anyone who is a climate involved student? And asked them to share a post, really. So, are you a student passionate about climate change? Was the title, and that really spread quite a lot. And there turned out to be a lot of students passionate about climate change and wanting to find like a way to act on it. So it was really through contacts and through just getting out there, and also what I think I talked about, like visionary communication there, that we, in that post, we didn't say, hey, we're 3 students who want to do this. We said that, are you a student passionate? Join this growing movement. And it quickly became a growing movement. And as for like certificates, I can only speak for how it works in Sweden. Then you like apply to become a formal organization, but that's we did that after like some months when we were already kind of a lot of people, and we adopted charters and started like the formal organization. But I don't know how it works in other countries, but it's really quite simple in Sweden at least, and you don't need to pay anything or like that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Our next question is from Mabel. She says, I go to a faith-based university. They do not have an environmental policy, and we have had trouble getting policy passed. Do you have any strategies for help?
Okay, so if I start answering? Yeah. Okay, so what we did at SLU to begin with was to just stand in the corridors and have a petition. So we had some coffee and cookies and got students to stop and say, okay, hey, do you want our universities to start living in line with the climate science? And it turned out a lot of people did, so we collected a lot of signatures, and once we had done that, then we could get a meeting with the vice chancellor. So I think like that a good idea, if you can, is to get this like support and saying, hey, I can speak for these 2,000 students, or how many signatures you managed to get. And that might help you to get a meeting with the person you want a meeting with.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I put into the chat for faith-based institutions. We have lots of different fellows programs where people volunteer to help with this. And one of our fellows was a professor. She did an analysis with her students of faith-based institutions that actually have sustainability and environmental programs and policies. And so I put the link in the chat so you can see it, and you can then refer to other institutions that are like yours. Hey, they are doing it. We are behind. So yeah, they want me to show my picture. Hi, I'm Debbie. Okay.
All right, just to add to what Emma said, there is also, I think that's something that we've done here in the University of Nigeria and Nsukka. And I think there is also a need to try to look out for ways to work with, faculty members, in trying to work with faculty members and coming up with, actual proposal that you can submit to the university management. And because over time, once you've succeeded in building momentum around the student, in being able to demonstrate that a good number of the student population want this to happen, the next thing is finding a way to align what you're doing and this with, with some members of the faculty. These are not necessarily managerial staffs, but members of the faculty, and then try to work together with them and try to pitch this to the university management. Also, I know the Green Office movement is also doing a lot of work around promoting student-staff collaboration and setting up a Green Office to try to promote sustainability among the in the university. So you can always also check out the Green Office model and see how you can, what you can, and there is also a course. They have also a training program that can help you, build capacity to try to build and move up this agenda. So it's also very helpful if you can check that out too.
I think also part of it, and while this is often like hard to comprehend, that a lot of it is sales skills. Terms like, specifically in the US, terms like activism, social welfare, social services, those terms have such a negative connotation with specific audiences. So knowing your audience, using the right kind of terminology, often the concept of protecting the environment and having green spaces is a very positive message. And it's just this idea of shaping your message and shaping your ideas to fit your audience.
I was also going to say, like, finding common ground, like you want to protect the air, the land, the animals, water, all of that.
Hey, awesome. That was very informative. Thank y'all so much. Okay, and for our next question, Hunter asks, what strategies can people use to keep motivated and maintain group cohesion? Keeping people engaged is vital to making a difference.
Evie, do you want to start?
Okay. I was just going to say, like, making sure everyone feels included and they have something to contribute to. So, like, being able to meet with policymakers and corporations has been really good for me to feel like I'm making a difference, and that makes me want to participate in our organizations more.
Yeah, I think I would also say, like, both celebrating success. It's easy when you try to like change the whole world, try to save the climate, that you never feel like you succeeded, but to like celebrate every small victory. I think that's very important for the motivation and see, okay, we're making progress. And also to something that's been really important for us in Sweden is that we organize a national conference every year where people who otherwise only meet through Zoom go to the same place for a full weekend, and we combine like working on our mission and having a lot of fun, like having like a sitting, I don't know the English word, like a dinner party kind of student dinner party, and playing a lot of games. So like keeping the fun in this kind of heavy topic, I think that's really important.
So we have a lot of ideas in that toolkit that you may want to look at. Managing the emotional climate of your meetings, and appreciating people. I agree with everything that's also been said. I think those are all important. This is about making the world a better place while also enjoying our daily lives. So talking specifically about coping skills and what kind of a change maker are you, and you'll see that in the toolkit, but we're glad to support you and more. We have a whole initiative called Beyond Doom and Gloom, Engage in Climate Solutions. It's not just about teaching climate challenges. It's got to be about teaching the potential solutions and how people can engage and the change agent skills they can build, which will help them in their personal life as well as in the climate.
And I just have a spontaneous impulse here. So as we're speaking about staying motivated and keeping the momentum going, I would just like to invite everybody who's on the call who would like to open their video to just turn your video on, and so we can just see actually who's all on the call today, and just to get a feeling for the energy in the room here. And you can just have a look through all the people and see the diversity of faces, just to get a sense of, the momentum that's already going on, that you're not alone, that we're all in this together.
And Tim, you're going to have other activities, right? So they are part of a community by attending this today.
Exactly. I'll say more about that as we close. But I guess I can already mention that we'll send out a follow-up email afterwards, and we'll invite you to an ongoing community where you can support each other and learn from each other's achievements and challenges. But I just wanted to give a moment here so you can just have a look through who's on the call, just to kind of tune into everyone's drive to be a part of the solution. Tune into your own heart, your own willingness to make some change happen in this world. And to know that, we're here to support you, and there will be moments that this work will be difficult, and that there will be challenges that you feel maybe desperate, or you feel like you want to give up. And that's also part of the journey, and that's part of the reason why we organize this workshop today, and the project that will continue, the community that you can be part of. Thanks for those background tunes. All right. Marco, maybe you can mute yourself again once you're done sharing your music.
So another thing that we do is we'll often say, where are you stuck? We'll have meetings where instead of having planned what we're going to share, we'll just say, where are you stuck? And then people help each other. We've got some hands raised here. Did you want to go back to the questions, Tim, or have people speak? Your call.
Mabel, go for it if you have an impulse to share your question right now, and then maybe we can go back to some of the other questions after that. Mabel, do you want to unmute yourself and raise your question?
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. I would like to preface this question by helping explain some of the context and some of the troubles I have been currently facing. I go to a very small Christian-based university that currently is one of, I think, only 5 universities in the entire country that does not have an environmental policy. And the top brass, so to speak, they don't want to hear it. We have a nature preserve that's federally protected, and they think they're doing enough as it is. However, currently, and I can't report this to authorities for reasons that would be very detrimental to my program. I'm sure people understand this. It's a lot of bureaucracy, and my program consists only of 25 students. So there isn't a whole lot of leverage that I can pull for this sort of thing. And there's just a huge lack of student engagement because we all feel so defeated because no one wants to hear us. And we also don't feel like we can leverage our power because they're more focused on alumni and getting stakeholders from outside to fund their current activities and less concerned about their current students. We have faced significant roadblocks trying to get an audience with the top leadership, like the president and vice president of the university. And every time we have gone to give our thoughts and share what we would like, we have just been total shutdown every single time. So if anyone has any kind of advice on how to push through this type of, another thing is most of this stems from, of course, the money issue, because they don't realize that investing green is actually really great for their stakeholders in the long run. How do we get through this and also get through, there's a lot of greenwashing that goes on at my university, get through this greenwashing. And also, I've been trying to do research on the Christian affiliation that they're associated with. And getting
sorry, Mabel, can I invite you to just come to a close and just restate what your question is, so we can hear some other voices as well.
How do we get through climate change denial and make effective policy in a climate that does not want to create effective policy? Thank you.
Well, thanks for bringing that question, and I feel the challenge that seems very alive for you right now. So yeah, I wonder if somebody would like to speak to that.
So just a quick answer. We did an analysis of faith-based institutions, and we have a list of all of these peer institutions to yours that are doing this. We could talk to you about strategies. It's about getting it into your local media. It shouldn't be you if you're a staff person. It should be a student that does it. You also could have your students sign up for the alumni events and start putting things into the chat. You could also go to your alumni office and talk to them about how if they can reach out to people who haven't given money yet with an environmental appeal that you think you can get money for the university that they couldn't get otherwise. We have a report on that from our HES group. The U.S. partnership works nationally and internationally on this. We're glad to support you. And Mabel, I gave you information on how to come to a core team meeting, and we have a person who's working on this specifically who could help mentor you. Yeah, and the toolkit too, Evie, right? So you're not alone, and others have walked this path. See if you can get to an ASHE conference, the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Ed. You will find a whole community of support there for yourself.
Also, I think it might be really important, like similar to what you said, Deborah said, to get this external pressure happening that's saying, okay, well, you can try to ignore a few students, but hey, look, this is happening internationally. This is happening all over the world. And that's really what the climate student movement is trying to achieve, to gather students and people like yourselves all over the world to get this momentum going. It's maybe not as easy to ignore an international movement. So if you and students at your universities would want to get in contact with Climate Students Movement, I'm sure that you could also get a lot of help from there. And I think they're also working, like in Sweden, we have created a national ranking every year of our universities that we did together with researchers in Sweden. that has been really successful in just putting some pressure, like, hey, you ended up last on this list. Do you really want to get there next year again? And so like, that's something I've realized kind of works with universities. They're into rankings, at least in Sweden. And if you make sustainability part of some ranking, that would also help. And I think the climate student movement are working on that on an international level also. But yeah, feel free to get in contact with climate student movement.
We are an institution that doesn't have enough money to join ASHE, though that's another problem. Just thought I would add that. And that's been something we've been trying to get to the STARS program, but we currently don't have enough funding for that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ASHE that's open source, and you can reach out to me and I can help you. I'm a senior advisor there. Okay, I'm putting some other stuff in the chat for you. I think Fred had his hand raised too.
Fred, do you want to come in?
Yeah, no, it's good to know, and it's actually really relevant to
Okay, maybe he's not here anymore.
We can go back to questions and revisit Fred's question later if we need to.
I just had a quick impulse to maybe invite any people from non-Western, non-European context who we maybe have heard slightly less from so far. If you would like to share any challenges, just to have kind of more global representation of challenges and speakers. Does that speak to anybody who's still on the call? Otherwise, I would hand it back to Ellie.
It looks like we have 2 people with their hands raised.
Okay.
So if either of you would like to speak, you're welcome to.
Himakshi, why don't you start?
Yeah.
Sure. So firstly, hi, everyone. Listening to all of you today has genuinely been amazing because, you know, as a 15-year-old, the biggest kind of aim I have and what I hope is that our future is secure, and just seeing like all of you so motivated, inspired, just makes me really, really kind of hopeful and yeah, feel more secure about my future. So I guess like my challenge, which I'm facing right now, is I'm actually in high school, so I'm 15 years old, and I recently started a kind of a climate activism club at our school, and it's been really cool because I've again been able to get students to join. Unfortunately, we've had issues across our school, such as, you know, there have been pipes which are leaking and there's so much water wastage, etc. In our canteens, you know, continuously everything's wrapped in plastic. So we've raised these issues to our board, and in fact, not only once, but about twice or thrice now. But unfortunately, we do get kind of a yes. But that yes is not followed with any action of any sort. So for any of you who have kind of faced a similar situation, do you believe the best method to actually get some action done is to continue persisting with, I guess, what you want to get done? Or is there any other strategy you would suggest? Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's something that very closely relates with me, because yeah, I've gotten a lot of yes to, and with still no action. So yeah, I think to persist is definitely one of the one of the key strategy. Continue, you know, just persist. We're also looking to come up with creative ways to drive the creative and unique ways to drive the campaign or the demand forward. I think one other good strategy that have worked with us here in Nigeria is we've had series of times here we present a demand, and then we get, oh, you guys are doing amazing work. We look into it, and then 5 months, 6 months, 1 year into the line, we've not seen any clear commitment. So we still keep following up. Okay, look at this is happening. We're still hoping that following the the comment or the assurance you made in so time, and we are going to, we are following up. We're reaching out to follow up and see what is the next thing. So persist is definitely one of the main things. We also try to look at creative ways and try to look at trends that you can use to drive your message forward. It's also very important.
Thank you so much for that.
All right, thank you very much.
Another thing, and it's so nice to see your motivation as well. Really, really inspiring. And like, if it's not working, I think an idea is to like get in contact with local media and see if they want to write a piece about it. Like a group of 15-year-olds doing this amazing work and saying like, hey, we've gotten this, yes, but nothing is happening. I would be surprised if that's a story they don't pick up on, and to have that as kind of, we might have to go to the media. That could also be a good like negotiation aspect.
That sounds great too. Genuinely, thank you so much to everyone.
I would like to pass the word to Tangihere. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, kia ora everyone. My name's Tangi Heidi. So yeah, pretty close. But I am a alumni of Otago Polytechnic, so I'm from New Zealand. I was also the previous vice president of the newly established National Disabled Students Association. And I've also been on the disability board to help make the operating model for our new Polytechnic Association in New Zealand. It's called Te Pukinga, so we've got one big umbrella for all of our polytechnics now. Sorry if I sound kind of tired, it's 4:30 a.m. at the moment here. And a big issue we have at the moment with a lot of our youth groups and youth associations is continuity. We don't really know how to retain students, and when we get really amazing leaders, once they've graduated from universities or once they've graduated from high school, they kind of move on to work, and we're having a big struggle with having them come back as mentors because we don't have the funding to pay them, and of course they need money to survive. So I was wondering if anyone had any tips for how we can kind of work on succession plans and mentoring programs and things like that.
Yeah, so what we've done quite successfully at US Partnership is we give them titles, right? We don't have money, nobody gets paid. All of us, Change the Chamber US Partnership, it's been all volunteer. And so what we do is we use Indeed, we use LinkedIn. There is a special way. You can't say that it's unpaid because then they'll make you pay for the ads. But if you say that you pay like up to $2 an hour, so everybody knows that's basically like no pay. And we put out positions as fellows. And so a lot of people, even though they're in the beginning of their career, once they have jobs, they have some time to do volunteering. And so if you make them a climate mentor or you make them a fellow of even, and Change the Chamber doesn't exist as a formal organization, it's just youth coming together. The title often brings them in and helps them be mentoring. Now we are looking for, we're outreaching for an app that would show all the different green jobs pathways and career and volunteer opportunities so that we can get to those in the informal economy. But right now that seems to be working quite well. We are also forming a LinkedIn group for those who have just graduated, because we do find they get isolated and oftentimes they lose their commitment to be change agents because they don't have a support mechanism. So we're working on that too. Good question.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Did anybody else want to comment on that question of how to retain students, keep the engagement going over time? Okay, then I will take one more question from Fred and then pass it back to
Ellie.
Questions. Yeah, back to.
Thank you. I began professionally working with climate change in 1987 and first learned about the potential of climate change in 1969. So I've been in this game for a long time. I've got degrees in biology, zoology, and library science, and have been a librarian for 40 years. I was just interested in knowing, before I go into my question, the person who's working at that small Christian college, they need to get two of the books that Catherine, Katharine, Catherine Hayhoe. She is a devout evangelical Christian who has written extensively on communicating climate change. And I've had a chance of meeting her about 8 years ago and still in contact with her. She's got some tremendous ideas for bringing this to the table of any place that you want to bring it. So anyway, but my question was, as a librarian and having worked in this realm as a librarian since '87, what extent are people using their academic libraries as a resource for helping them bring their environmental sustainability and climate issues? I know from the International Federation of Library Associations down to local chapters of professional associations are getting heavily involved. I wrote the resolution on climate change for the American Library Association. Our current ALA president has a dedicated program element on climate change. So librarians are moving this thing along as best as they can. And I would just suggest reaching out to your academic librarians. So that's my. I would like just to know if anybody is using their libraries and librarians to help them.
So Fred, so Edie, if you can drop into the chat, well, I'll do it afterwards. There's this thing called the SDG Publishers Compact. It's been created by the International Publishers Association and the Office of Publications at the United Nations. And we've actually started a fellows program for them where we have 16 fellows. We've got publishers, we've got two of the librarians at Cornell University, and we have a top 10 tips for librarians. And so there's a lot going on there to align research and educational materials. We're doing a convening for textbook publishers later this year. So any of you on the call, if you've got materials you think should be included in textbooks, if you'll send them my way, I'll give you an email that you can send it to. That would be wonderful. And we're really engaging the editors of research journals as well as all of the libraries to help make all of the SDGs come alive, but especially climate because of its urgency. So I'll put that link into the chat and the email where you can send information that you want us to share with textbook publishers around climate education.
Great, thank you so much. I just had one more question here from Emily about what do we actually mean with climate education? So maybe you could share the definition that you've developed there, and then we'll go back to the questions. Emily, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I'm from Generation Climate Europe, and we're having a project on climate sustainability education. And our members are, for example, the European Student Union, and we're working towards a definition on climate education because if you lobby for something, if you go and you write a policy brief on something, you want to know what you actually talk about, and ideally also have more of a common definition. So I was going to ask how you guys define climate education, and we have this form that we kind of try to send out to everyone and gather their definitions to write something out of. So I would put it in the chat if any of you also the participants wants to fill it out, that would be awesome. But also from the speakers, because you're already working on things, I'd be interested to hear what climate education is in your organizations defined as.
So I think maybe that's more an invitation to come back to, maybe just writing that in the chat or something to come back to later on. So I would like to pass the word back to Ellie for just highlighting maybe a couple of more questions.
Yeah, so the next top voted question that we have is how do you go about international expansion? Is it via social media? And are there any other suggested platforms?
Okay, so I can answer that. With FFF Climate Education, we obviously Fridays for Future is an international movement, so it was a bit easier getting in touch with everyone, but we still had some trouble. Obviously, we started the project as a few Polish students, so we had to kind of reach out to everyone, and we tried joining as many like Telegram groups on various topics as we could, and we basically dropped a message saying, hey, we're starting this project. If you want to get involved, come on a call with us. We're going to explain everything, and we can keep in touch. And that's how we got a lot of people into our project initially. And then they were just inviting their friends and other people that they knew that they thought would be interested. But also we kind of focused on like our social media campaigns and trying to get our content to a lot more people. And then in this way, some people joined us as well, just seeing our content online and seeing us at like some conferences or at COP, for example. And they were like, hey, we want to work on that. Can you add us to the group chat, or can you get us involved? So that is kind of how we did it. We just tried to send messages on like Telegram chats and in as many places as we could.
To add on to that, what we did in Climate Students was to get in contact with international organizations that were already international and that kind of had a similar cause. And for example, we were on We Don't Have Time. They had like an international broadcast, and we had 10 minutes on that. And also like Students Organizing for Sustainability International, that we can be here today. So just reach out to organizations that have this international network and try to tap into that.
Okay, awesome. Moving on to the next question. This is specifically for Emilia regarding the lesson plans. Will those lesson plans be made available for other teachers? Like, is a common platform for exchanging teaching material?
Yeah, so the teaching materials are going to be made by us under the Ministry of Education of Poland. So they're going to be redistributed to every single teacher in the entire country. I don't know if you're asking more about like using those lesson plans for maybe your campaigns or something. That I'm afraid wouldn't be an option because they're going to be in Polish entirely. But we are trying to compile like a base on our website with lesson plans that are available already online. Maybe you could check out our website in a couple of weeks. And I'm sure there are also a lot of other initiatives who kind of compile all of those lesson plans that are already out there on the internet. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't think they're going to be available because they're in Polish. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Moving on to our next question. How do you deal with people who deny climate change or are apathetic to climate change?
So when I do social media for Change the Chamber, sometimes I do kind of tailor messages to people like that. So, you know, what I said before about finding common ground and connecting on how we need to protect air and water and space and biodiversity. And also taking climate impacts kind of out of the equation and focusing more on like economic projections. So like recovering from natural disasters, which are predicted to increase from climate change, is always like I think, 10 times more expensive than just preventing them in the first place. So that's kind of the way that I go on that.
Let me share a couple things. So I've gone to lots of colleges and universities to give presentations on this. And I always ask to meet with the president. I ask to meet with the head of the charity organizations in the community, the mayor, and the chambers of commerce. And then they list what they care about. And then I can relate what they care about to climate and the solutions for climate. And I will tell you that I've talked to college presidents that what they care about is getting another job somewhere else, or they'll, if you say what excites you in your daily life, they'll start to talk about their sailboat, and you think, oh my gosh, what are you doing as a college president? But I can relate their desire for sailing and for clean waters and for the beauty of nature, because there's always a way to hook it. I actually went and got a PhD in marketing so that I could use the strategies within marketing to effectively connect with all of our different target audiences. So there's also research out there. So you can go to your library and they'll have them look under energy and changing behaviors, because it's not just we found a lot of people turn off to the crisis language, but they turn on to helping make my family safe. So knowing what language to use, and one of the best ways to do that is listen first and then match their language and the things Evie was saying about, the common ground: clean air, clean water, good jobs, a healthy economy, preventing disasters, lots of different ways to connect. And it's always about keeping it loving and caring. Sustainability at its core is about loving people beyond your family and friends. If you keep an open heart of loving to people beyond your family and friends, then you're going to want to live in a more sustainable way. And people who can't do that with their heart, they've been hurt and they haven't figured out how to heal. So, we also do, I teach psychology for a lot of years after teaching renewable energies for a lot of years, but you don't have to be an expert. You just try different things and come from a loving space. There's also at uspartnership.org, if you look under Take Action, there's a whole thing on dialogue fixes. So there's living room conversations, there's the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, nonviolent communication, lots of things that you can use there, but don't wait to be an expert. Just try and keep trying different things. You'll see which ones work. And thank you for all your efforts.
I would also suggest there's specifically a documentary called Public Trust, specifically about the use of public land in the United States. It's a free documentary online, but it specifically talks about the balance of Indigenous voices, ranchers, people who use public land for hunting, things like that, and all those voices coming together to protect these lands from specifically people trying to get oil, and they go to the government. And I think it's a great resource.
All right, so we have 15 minutes left on this call, and I thought we could maybe just take about 10 minutes before we close to just tune into what is your main takeaway from the session today. So maybe you can just take a minute or two to reflect from yourself and digest actually what all the things you've heard today. What feels like a most valuable lesson learned for you that you might want to share with other peers, or that you might want to take action on moving forwards after this call. So I'll just put on some music in the background and help you tune in to your learning. And if you would like to share, please do so via the poll on the Slido. The link is in the chat. And so yeah, just focus on your own learning for a few minutes and write that into the poll, and then we can spend some time looking at what other people are writing in there. All right, so you can see on the screen here some of the takeaways that people have been posting. You can just have a look on what's on here. I think you should be able to see that as well if you click on the link of Slido. See other people's responses there. Just scroll through those and you can read what's here. And Evie or Ellie, maybe you want to highlight some of the things that have been posted on here?
And Tim, people are asking if they'll be able to get a copy of the chat because there's so much stuff in there.
Yes, of course. You should be able to save the chat for yourself, but I'll also save the chat and share it afterwards. Evie or Ellie, any of the lessons that you've read from people here are?
Yeah, I feel like for like using the magic sentences that Evie talks about, appealing to your audience specifically, you know, saying that they have an important part in sustainability, and that type of appeal will get them to work with you and encourage people to work with you. The Changemaker Toolkit, again, offers some great resources for avoiding burnout, because it's a very likely thing to happen here. It's incremental progress. It's not going to happen all at the same time, and it's going to be a long fight. Organization is key, both throughout your own groups and with other groups. Yeah, and I really liked, I think it was Emma B who said that this is our education when we are the experts on it. And was it not you? I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that, and I thought it was a great key takeaway, because we are the experts, and this is our education, and our voices should be heard, and that we declare what we want to learn. We're paying for our education, at least in America. We're paying for our education, and our education should be tailored to what we want to learn, and that's climate education. Anything to add, Evie?
Oh, yeah, I think those are all really good points that you said.
Anybody else who would still like to unmute themselves and just highlight things that you've heard today, or that you just want people to know about what seems most valuable from our time together today?
I think like it's really important what you said, Ellie, also about like the sustainability of our own engagement and burnouts, and that like when you hear these success stories, it can also be like really like, I have to do everything, but like none of us can, and we have to live full lives while we do it. So I think that's really important to remind ourselves that like we're doing everything we can and we're doing a great job, but we're not gonna do it all in one day. So also make sure to feel good while you do it.
Yeah, something I also wanted to add was mentioned by Deborah, and she said that essentially when you're speaking about climate activism, kind of speak from the heart. And that kind of stuck with me a lot, because often we tend to use like very high-tech vocab, and while some people may be able to understand what exactly we're saying, sometimes just the general gist of what we're trying to actually get out to the people who surround us gets lost in that communication. But when you kind of simplify it, just kind of like we said, like common ground, common air, you know, find the common kind of gist of inspiration between everyone, then that's when we are able to make the greatest change. So yeah, I think whenever I speak about climate activism now, I'm just gonna try and speak from the heart.
All right, thank you so much. Any last voice or two that wants to be heard?
Hi everyone, Miriam here. For me, this has been really amazing. Just really the general, the general webinar. It's been a while since I've been in a webinar where we've got plenty of time to really interact and reflect. So this webinar has really given us a lot of time to be able to reflect and interact and really just share. And I really love this about that at least when we went into the second hour of the webinar, we had all the time to ourselves to really just do whatever. This was amazing. Thank you so much to the organizers. I love it. Thanks.
Thank you, that's great to hear. All right, so I would just like to close with a couple of invitations and announcements. So I did mention that, or that this call is being recorded, so we'll be sharing this, and I'll also invite you to share it with other people who you think would find value in this knowledge, and to extend also the invitation to participate in the youth and education projects. So this call it's like the launch of this youth and education project, and basically together with UNEP and UNESCO, as I mentioned, we're working to convene students from all around the world and support you to work with ministers, policymakers in your own countries, and to share your experiences with students in other places of the world and support each other addressing those challenges. So you can find the link here in the chats to register. We'd like to invite you to register by next week, so by March 8th. So we can kind of start with a cohort of people who are committed to continue being active with this work. And we'll have a second webinar like this, or workshop, in April. So we can then also dive into some of the challenges that you're really see most important for you in actually taking or continuing taking action. Yes, let me just share my screen for a second here to give you an overview of what this project involves exactly. 1 second. Here we go. So yeah, it's really about getting support to collaborate with policymakers in your country to embed climate education in higher education curricula. As I mentioned, advocacy workshop number 2 in April. Peer community of students all around the world. We'll also have some more peer calls just to invite you to share and get to know each other better. And we'll also be working on a manifesto, which is basically like a collection of asks or demands of students, as well as recommendations based on your experiences and some of the good practices we've been hearing on how students can actually effectively collaborate with ministers or policymakers in general. And we also got confirmation from the UNESCO to organize a roundtable event in May as part of the UNESCO World Higher Education Conference. So that will be also an opportunity to have direct contact with policymakers or their assistants and representatives of student leaders around the world to really bring all these voices together and into a kind of high-level policy forum. Yes. Let me see if I forgot to mention anything. We'll also be sharing the minutes. So we have been taking some minutes. So if you want to skip the video and go directly to a text-based recap of today, you'll find that, and you can also contribute to that. And we'll also be sharing some of the asks and recommendations that we've already been drawing together from the preparation work in this project. And you're also invited to help contribute to those. And again, just an invitation to invite other people who you think might still want to join this youth and education project and expand the community even further. I think that's all from my side today. Ellie, Evie, Deborah, anything else that I forgot to mention?
just really excited about the next steps. I think we've used our time well today. Thank you so much, Tim, for spearheading this. And to all of you for all your efforts. I celebrate you. Every time you make an effort, it's going to reduce the amount of suffering and help build a brighter future. So thank you.
All right, well then maybe you can all unmute yourself if you like to share any last sounds or voices or gestures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for all the helpful information. I'm sure it'll be invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Really inspiring.
Take care, everyone, and hope to see you soon enough.
Thanks to those who organized this. It was very, very well done. I wish there were a lot more people, like hundreds, that could have taken place, could have taken advantage of this, but maybe in the future. I remain optimistic.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll be closing the webinar now. So.
One more. Receiving a follow-up email to continue this.
Yes, assuming you have registered for this webinar via the event link,
yes.
We'll be sending an email to all the people who registered there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Take care now.